I heard it clear as day. My niece Madison's voice, just loud enough to carry, like cruelty wrapped in tissue paper. It wasn't meant for me, but it was never meant not to be heard either. It was a performance. For the girls surrounding her. For Lauren. For herself. That kind of comment isn't an accident, it's a deliberate incision. I stood in the entrance hall of the Crystal Banquet Room at the Harborview Hotel in Clearwater, clutching the gift bag I had carefully packed with a monogrammed serving set I had ordered from a catalog Lauren once circled. My knuckles were white on the handles. My nails freshly polished. My hair set the old-fashioned way because that's how Harry always liked it. The maitre d' smiled at me, strained and distracted. "Ah, Mrs. Green. Martha Green." He glanced down a list. Not up toward me. "Of course. You're with the Miller party. Right this way." He led me toward the farthest corner of the room, next to a rattling HVAC vent and a stack of catering boxes labeled gluten-free. Table 7. No place card. No flower sprig like the others. Just a bare cloth napkin and silverware slightly off-center. At the main table, beneath crystal chandeliers and a golden runner, sat the family. Engraved name cards in gold script: Lauren Miller, Tyler Miller, Gretchen Miller, Uncle Dean. I scanned the table twice. My name wasn't there. Not even the old-fashioned mother of the bride. I remained standing. For a moment, I thought someone might notice. That Lauren would glance up, see me hovering like a maid waiting for instruction, and call me forward with a smile that said, "Come join us, Mom." But she didn't look. She didn't even flinch. Instead, I heard her laugh. Head tilted back. That airy, performative laugh that only comes when you know the spotlight is yours. It was then that I noticed. The bouquet centerpieces, the napkin folds, the table layout, all of it came from a Pinterest board Lauren and I had made together. 3 years ago. Back when she still texted me excitedly about color schemes. Back before Tyler moved in, bringing with him his disarming charm and his slow, quiet campaign of ownership. I sat down at the corner table, stiff as a guest at a stranger's funeral. Around me, the room swelled with music and movement, champagne toasts, clinking glasses, cameras flashing. At least half the guests had touched something I had paid for. I funded the entire evening. Every drop of it. From the signature cocktails to the seat cushions. I was the one who signed the contract with Harborview, paid the deposits, arranged for the custom lighting to match the coastal blush palette Lauren insisted on. And now I was the shadow behind the caterer's station, the stray. A soft voice interrupted my spiral. "Excuse me, would you mind stepping just a bit to the side?" The photographer, young and polite, gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We're capturing some family candids over here." "Family?" I repeated, voice dry. "Yes, just the immediate circle." I stared at him for a moment. "I am the immediate circle." He blinked, confused, then awkwardly adjusted his camera strap and walked away. I didn't move. From where I sat, I had a perfect view of my daughter laughing beside Tyler, her hair swept into a soft wave that reminded me of her childhood. I remembered brushing that hair when she was 5 and begging to wear pink to her first school photo. I remembered holding her while she sobbed through her first breakup, baking her favorite cinnamon cake when she failed her driver's test. But tonight, I was the old habit she had outgrown. Harry would have hated this. And loved it, if I'm being honest. He always liked things neat, proper. He would have said, "Just sit and smile. Don't make a scene. Let the children have their day." But even Harry, with his iron composure, wouldn't have abided what came next. The toasts began. To Lauren and Tyler's fresh start, Uncle Dean began. Building a life together, in their own home, away from old structures. The room laughed. Gretchen Miller, Tyler's mother, stood next. She clinked her glass delicately. "I just want to say," she began, "it's been beautiful watching Lauren become part of our family. I know it's not always easy letting go of old roles, but sometimes freedom comes when we step into new ones. No baggage. No inherited obligations. Just new beginnings." Applause. Nods. Even a few tears. No one looked at me. My ears rang with the word, obligations. I wasn't a mother. I was a relic. An obligation. A burden to shed in pursuit of their shining future. I pressed my hand against the tablecloth to stop it from trembling. I hadn't eaten yet. I'd lost weight since Harry passed. None of my clothes fit quite right anymore, and I had been too embarrassed to shop for something new. I felt, more than ever, like a stranger in my own lineage. Across the table, I caught Tyler watching me. Not kindly. Not cruelly. Calculatingly. Like someone assessing whether a piece of furniture still had use. I looked down at the envelope in my lap. A heavy one, legal paper. I hadn't opened it. Didn't want to. Yet. When the dessert arrived, raspberry tart with a drizzle of creme anglaise, Lauren raised her glass. To Tyler. To love. And to the joy of moving forward without the noise of the past. You're my peace. She didn't say we. She said you. As though I and Harry, by extension, had been the war. The room clinked glasses. Laughter echoed. The string quartet shifted into something light and hopeful. I stood. Quietly. No one noticed. I walked, slowly, out through the wide hotel doors, into the warm Clearwater air. Past valet. Past the garden hedges. Into the night. I took off my shoes. My feet were blistered. I carried them in one hand and walked the 3 blocks to the seaside in a place where I had once sent Lauren and her friends for a beach weekend when she turned 21. The woman at the desk didn't recognize me. I paid cash. Room 114. The towels were thin. The walls thinner. But at least the silence was honest. I lay on the bed, fully dressed, envelope still unopened on my chest. I stared at the ceiling fan, watching it turn slow circles like time refusing to move. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just listened to the whirring of the air conditioner and the faint rustle of palm trees outside. I waited until my breath was steady enough to do what I had avoided all night. I opened the envelope. Inside was a 2-page document printed on thick stock, notarized, dated 3 weeks before Harry died. It bore a familiar letterhead, Law Office of Edward Grant, Clearwater. Only the numbers didn't match. The document read, in crisp legalese, upon the death of Harry W. Green, all assets, properties, and financial holdings are to be transferred in full to Lauren Miller. It was signed, stamped, witnessed. At the bottom was a short, handwritten note in Tyler's handwriting, "Will help you find something on Maple Court. More manageable." Attached was $300 in cash, paper-clipped to a real estate agent's card. The betrayal was complete. But here's what they didn't know. Harry showed me his real will. 2 weeks before the heart attack. He had sat me down in the den, beside the fireplace, the night after a hospital scare, and placed the folder in my hands. "I want you to know," he said, "exactly where everything stands. Because I don't trust anyone else to interpret my wishes." He had underlined the clause himself. "To my wife, Martha Green, I leave our home on Oak Lane, all personal belongings, and 65% of our financial holdings. To our daughter, Lauren Miller, I leave the remainder in trust, contingent on her treating her mother with respect for no less than 1 calendar year after my passing." He didn't believe in sentiment. But he believed in fairness. He knew Lauren's temper. He knew her entitlement. He feared Tyler's influence. And he built in a clause for the exact betrayal that had just occurred. They had handed me a forgery. Or an outdated draft. Maybe even both. Thinking I'd be too heartbroken, too tired, too broken to check. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. I got out of bed. Picked up my purse. And walked, barefoot, across the cool tile floor to the small desk in the corner. I opened the browser. Typed in Edward Grant, Clearwater, estate planning. Tomorrow, I'd walk into his office with the envelope. I'd ask for the original. I'd ask to see the signature. The notary seal. The file history. If there were lies in that envelope, I was going to find the truth in ink, in law, and in fire if necessary. Because I wasn't going to be seated in the corner anymore. I built that home. I buried that man. And I was about to raise hell. I sat on the edge of the motel bed with the envelope Tyler had slid across the table, now open and limp in my lap, like the skin of something dead. I had stared at those forged words so long, they began to blur. The corners of the paper were soft from where my thumbs had pressed in, like I could squeeze the lie out through the ink. But lies don't fade. They root. They rot. They spread. My stomach was tight with a hunger I hadn't named yet, not for food, but for truth. Harry had shown me his will. I saw his handwriting. I watched him underline that clause. He said it aloud, in case she forgets how to treat you. And now that exact clause had vanished like it never existed. As if I never existed. They didn't expect me to check. That was the worst part. They thought I'd just nod and thank them for $300 and a brochure for a retirement box on Maple Court, as if 40 years of marriage and motherhood could be cleaned up and repackaged into a one-bedroom with a kitchenette and a view of a parking lot. But I remembered Harry's lawyer, Edward Grant. He had been at our dining table the day we closed on Oak Lane. I remembered the creases in his suit and the way he cleared his throat before every sentence. I remembered his solemn voice when Harry updated the will. It's best to make this clear now. In writing. While you're still well. He would know. He would have the real file. The timestamp. The clause. The motel lobby computer groaned awake when I tapped the keys. A yellow keyboard. A flickering monitor. It took 5 tries before the search engine loaded. Edward Grant, attorney, Clearwater. Still in business. I called. His secretary's voice was cool, almost clipped. He's busy all day. Tell him it's Martha Green. Harry Green's wife. He'll want to see me. There was a pause. Then, be here at 11. His office was quiet. Too quiet. Like the kind of quiet that knows something is coming. The receptionist offered me water. I declined. Edward came out with surprise behind his eyes. Martha. My God. His handshake lingered. I was so sorry to hear about Harry. Thank you, I said. Then I opened my purse and pulled out the envelope. But I think there's been a mistake. I watched his expression shift as he read. His brow tightened. His mouth thinned. This isn't what I have on file, he said quietly. You have the original? He nodded. Of course. Within minutes, he returned with a heavy folder. Inside, clipped neatly, was Harry's real will. The one I remembered. The one I watched him sign. Under the notary's seal, the real one, was the clause, clear as a blade. To my wife, Martha Green, I leave the house on Oak Lane, all personal property, and 65% of our financial assets, approximately $7, $8 million. To my daughter, Lauren Miller, $4, $2 million in trust, contingent upon her treating her mother with respect for at least 1 year after my passing. A silence settled in the room. It wasn't shock. It was confirmation. I had been right to stay still. To wait. To watch. Edward closed the file. His fingers tapped the desk once, sharply. This, he said, motioning to Tyler's version, is either an old draft or a forgery. The fonts don't match. The margins are inconsistent. There's no notary seal, not a legal one at least. He sat back. Martha, I need to make some calls. The next 3 hours moved like dominoes. Edward called the county registrar, then the bank, then a personal contact at Clearwater PD. His voice, usually mild, became clipped and crisp. We need to freeze the estate, he told the bank. He looked up at me. They're going to try to move the assets fast. We're moving faster. By 2:37 p.m., my daughter and son-in-law were unaware that their financial world had just iced over. By 3:18 p.m., my phone buzzed. Lauren. A single text. Mom. The bank's saying our cards are declined. Is that a mistake? I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered. Then I typed. That's not a mistake, sweetheart. That's karma catching up. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't need one. But 30 seconds later, another message came through. This is your fault. You're being dramatic. We were just trying to simplify things. Don't turn this into a war. I laughed. Not loudly, not joyfully. The kind of laugh that carries centuries. That digs up all the times I said yes when I wanted to say no. All the holidays I hosted. All the bills I paid. All the disappointments I swallowed. Oh, Lauren, I typed. It already is war. I just finally decided to fight back. By morning, the detective had a name. Vega. Detective Emily Vega. Sharp eyes. Tighter voice. She spread the forged will on Edward's office carpet like it was a crime scene, which it was. Wrong seal, she said. Wrong paper texture. Signature shadowing is inconsistent. And the spacing on the last paragraph? That's amateur-level document manipulation. I nodded, but my hands were trembling. How amateur? I asked. Not high school forgery. But not a professional criminal either. Probably someone who knows their way around Word and PDF converters. Someone like Tyler? She glanced up. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Orders went out. To every financial institution tied to Harry's estate. Banks. Brokers. Utilities. Everything locked. No withdrawals. No changes. No exceptions. That night, the universe performed a little theater just for me. Lauren and Tyler were out at a trendy downtown bistro, one of the places they liked to post from, their smiling faces filtered, their plates artfully photographed. Lauren, in a cream dress I'd helped her pick out last Christmas. Tyler, in a blue linen blazer, probably paid for by the emergency loan they asked for 2 months before Harry died. They tried to pay. Card declined. Then the second card. Declined. I watched the fallout unfold in real time, not in person, but through a whisper chain of texts from a friend of a friend who worked the bar. Your daughter's throwing a tantrum. Tyler just left his watch as collateral. My phone buzzed again. Tyler. This time with his signature calm. Let's handle this like adults. No need to make this public. We can talk, Martha. I texted back. Did you help forge the will? His reply was lightning quick. I understand that this is an emotional time for you. Maybe you're not in the best state to make financial decisions. I stared at those words. Emotional time. As if widowhood and theft were the same as forgetting to pay a bill. He was trying to flip the script. Make me the unstable one. The confused matriarch. The obstacle to be managed. I turned off my phone. I stared at the ceiling of the Seaside Inn. The fan hummed. The room still smelled faintly of disinfectant and mildew. But something inside me had shifted. I no longer felt like a guest in my own life. At 6:12 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. It was Clearwater PD. We have Lauren Miller in custody, the officer said. She was taken in at 1:43 a.m. for presenting false legal documentation and attempting to access frozen accounts. I closed my eyes. And Tyler. Picked up at his office this morning. He didn't put up a fight. By that evening, I had my keys back. The house on Oak Lane still smelled like Harry. His cologne lingered in the closet. His slippers still by the door. The upstairs hallway was coated in dust. No one had been cleaning it. In the master bedroom, the bed was stripped. My drawers emptied. They had already started moving in. Lauren's designer coats were hung in my closet. Her jewelry box was on my vanity. There were shoes lined up along the baseboard, expensive, pointy ones with red soles I knew she couldn't afford. I didn't touch them. I called Goodwill. I bagged every item. Set them neatly on the front porch. Took a photo. Texted her. Your things are waiting outside. Pick them up before morning. After that, they're gone. She didn't reply, but I knew she read it. I stood in the center of the living room, barefoot, silent, and breathed. For the first time in 2 months, I slept in my bed again. I pulled the covers up to my chin, like I used to before Harry got sick. I listened to the stillness. I let it hold me. And when I woke the next morning, the world hadn't ended. It had just begun. I opened the front door at 6:07 a.m., barefoot, still in my nightgown, and found the garbage bags untouched. Lauren hadn't come for her things. 5 thick black bags lined the porch like body bags, her handbags, coats, silk blouses with dry clean tags still on them. One had her wedding shoes. I'd paid for those too. Ivory satin, a soft gold heel. I remembered standing in the boutique while she twirled in them, asking me if they looked powerful. They looked hollow now. I dragged them to the edge of the lawn, next to the bin. I didn't even flinch. Let the raccoons have them. Inside, I made coffee, the kind Harry used to say was strong enough to wake the dead. I poured it black, stared out the window, and waited. By 6:49 a.m., my phone buzzed. You're being petty, Mom. I can't believe you're doing this over a misunderstanding. Over a misunderstanding. They handed me a forged will, stole my house, locked me out of accounts, pushed me into a motel, and now I was being petty. No, I was being precise. I didn't respond. At 7:02 a.m. a knock. Hard. Rehearsed. I opened the door and there she was. My daughter. Lauren. Hair pulled back in a too-tight bun, mascara smudged beneath her eyes, mouth drawn tight like she'd spent the night biting her lip. She looked older. Or maybe I had just stopped seeing her through the softness of memory. "Mom," she said, voice shaking. I messed up. I let the silence hang. She shifted on her heels, eyes flicking to the garbage bags by the curb. "I know you're angry," she said. Tyler said we should simplify things. He said we were just updating the documents to make everything cleaner. We didn't mean to cut you out. I stared at her. "You forged a legal will." She blinked fast. "We didn't forge, we found an older version. We thought Dad had changed his mind. I saw him sign the real one. You showed me something fake. You gave me cash like I was a stray. You smiled while I sat next to the catering boxes." She flinched. "Please, Mom," she whispered. "It's me. I'm still your daughter." "No," I said softly. "You were. But daughters don't do this." Then I reached into my pocket and played the voice message Harry left me, the one he'd recorded after his will was updated. His voice came out crackly, low, intimate. "If you're hearing this, Lauren, it means you chose the shortcut. I left you something, but only if you earned it. If you're hearing this, it means you didn't." Lauren broke. It wasn't dramatic. No sweeping sobs. Just a collapse. Shoulders folding inward, mascara running, knees weakening. She slid down to the porch like a puppet with cut strings, covering her face, whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I didn't move. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for herself. 2 days later, I got a knock at the door that came not with shame, but with calculation. Evelyn Miller. Tyler's mother. Dressed in beige linen and a statement necklace that looked like it cost more than my mortgage used to. She held a leather folder under one arm and a faint smile under carefully drawn lips. "Mrs. Green," she said as I opened the door. "May I come in?" "No." She stepped inside anyway. I followed her to the living room. She sat not on the couch, but on the edge of Harry's recliner. As if she knew exactly what mattered most to me. "I came to make peace," she said. I said nothing. "We know this has been difficult." Emotions ran high. Mistakes were made. But none of that benefits anyone now. She opened the folder. Inside were papers I didn't bother to read. $500,000, she said. "You walk away. No lawsuits. No headlines." I smiled. She blinked. "I'm sorry. Was that amusing? You came into my home," I said, "and offered me money like it was hush money for a parking dispute." She didn't flinch. "$1 million then." My stomach turned. "You think I'm for sale?" "I think everyone has a price." I stood. "And what happens if I say no?" Her smile vanished. "I'd hate," she said slowly, "to see Harry's name dragged through court. I've heard things. About his business dealings. Money moved through shell companies. Strange deposits. Your late husband was involved in things the IRS might find interesting." There it was. The threat. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I picked up my phone. "Edward," I said. "Get me an independent auditor. I want every file in Harry's office reviewed. Every ledger. Every receipt. If there are skeletons, I want to be the one who finds them, not her." Evelyn's face hardened. "You're making a mistake," she said. "No," I said, walking to the door. "You did. You thought I was still the grieving widow who'd let herself be erased. But I'm not. I'm what happens after that." I opened the door. "Get out of my house." She left. But the threat stayed. That night, I stood in Harry's study, the one he had kept locked for most of our marriage. The smell of cigars and paper and dust was still heavy. I hadn't stepped foot in it since the funeral. Now, it felt like walking into a tomb filled with sealed boxes. Carol Chin arrived just before 9 a.m. the next morning. Private auditor. 40-something. Red lipstick. Businesslike but kind-eyed. Edward had sent her. "She's the best," he said. "But she's blunt." She was. She combed through every file, every binder, every drawer. Her assistant scanned documents. Her eyes narrowed and widened and narrowed again. 6 hours later, she looked at me and exhaled. "Mrs. Green," she said, gently. "We have a problem." She opened a file. "Shell companies," she said. "At least 3. Registered offshore. Fake names. Consulting fees for work that never happened. Transfers that align with known laundering routes." I couldn't breathe. "You're saying your husband was likely involved in money laundering? And not just recently. Years of it." My legs went weak. I sat on the edge of the desk. "So, the accounts, the assets? If it's confirmed as criminal money, it can all be seized." I stared at the photo of Harry on the desk, him holding a trout he caught in Vermont, smiling like he hadn't lied about a thing in his life. "And Lauren?" I asked. "Tyler." "Tyler probably already knows," she said. "He's connected to real estate investment firms with, let's say, questionable associates. He may have gotten wind of Harry's activities before you ever did." That night, Lauren called me. Her voice was small, trembling. "Mom," she said, "there's something I have to tell you. Tyler made a deal with the feds." I said nothing. He's cooperating. Turning over documents. About Dad's companies. He says it could protect us. He says if we cooperate, they'll leave the house and you'll keep about $5 million. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So let me understand," I said quietly. "You're asking me to use your father's crimes to clean up your fraud?" Silence. "Mom," she said, "please don't be naive. Be practical." I looked around at the office, the walls lined with certificates and secrets, the carpet worn from years of pacing. I pressed a hand against the mahogany desk. "Carol," I called. "Get me a meeting with the feds. If this is war, I'm not surrendering. I'm firing first." Agent Sarah Martinez didn't look like what I expected. No suit. No cold stare. She walked into Edward's office wearing jeans and a leather jacket, hair tied back in a no-nonsense braid, and the calm presence of someone who's seen too many families rip themselves apart for money. She didn't shake my hand. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're late, Mrs. Green." I blinked. "Excuse me? You should have come to us the moment you got that fake will. It would have saved you a lot of pain. But I'll admit what you've done since then. That's impressive." I didn't smile. "I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm here to protect what's mine." She sat across from me and opened a folder. A manila mountain of betrayal. She didn't glance at the pages. She didn't need to. I've read every word of the financial audit. "We have confirmation your husband used shell companies to launder money through offshore entities, real estate, consulting, even a fake art appraisal firm. None of it tied to you legally. That's good. We're freezing those channels, recovering assets, and tracking Tyler's movement." I folded my hands. "And the forged will?" "Already submitted to the federal prosecutor's office as evidence of intent to commit fraud and elder financial abuse. It strengthens the case against Tyler and Lauren. But if you want this to end clean." "I don't want it to end clean," I interrupted. "I want it to end loud." Sarah's eyebrows lifted. "Then let's talk leverage." She laid out the plan. I'd wear a wire. A live recording device, disguised in a brooch, with a long-range mic and a transmitter to the FBI van that would be parked 2 blocks away. My job was simple: get them talking. Get them admitting. Get them comfortable enough to brag. The kind of bragging only guilty people feel entitled to. I thought of Lauren's voice on the phone, shrill, desperate. I thought of Tyler's smug smile when he slid that envelope across the banquet table. I thought of the garbage bags full of Lauren's lies. And I said yes. The doorbell rang at 7:01 p.m. that night. I was dressed in navy silk and pearls. Hair done. Brooch pinned. The living room was lit softly, candles flickering like I hadn't just armed myself with federal surveillance equipment. I opened the door and let the 2 of them in like they hadn't stolen my house and tried to sell me out. Lauren wore soft pink, eyes rimmed in nervous eyeliner. Tyler smelled like cologne and audacity. "Wow," he said, looking around. "Place looks nice again." "It never stopped being mine," I replied. He laughed too quickly. Of course. We're just here to talk." They sat on the couch. I stayed standing. We brought some documents, Tyler said, pulling out a folder. Just a draft. Clean paperwork. Family transfers. Trust dissolutions. No press. No damage. I didn't touch it. Lauren tried to smile. Mom, we know things got confusing, but none of this has to define us. Define us? I repeated. You forged my husband's will. Tyler leaned forward, hands clasped. We thought it was the best way to move forward. Your husband's assets weren't exactly clean, Martha. You know that now. And if you press this, if you escalate, you're not just burning us. You're burning Harry's legacy. His name. Let me ask you something, I said, voice steady. When did you find out Harry was laundering money? Was it before the wedding, or only after you started digging into his accounts? They blinked. I think Agent Martinez finds that question interesting, I added. For a moment, nothing moved. Then Lauren whispered, Agent. From the hallway, the door burst open. Federal agents poured in. Jackets marked FBI. Flashlights. Voices yelling, hands up. On your knees. Now. Lauren screamed. Tyler cursed and lunged for the folder, but they were too slow. Way too slow. Handcuffs clicked. Phones seized. Documents bagged. You're under arrest, Agent Martinez said coldly. Wire fraud, elder financial abuse, forgery, attempted extortion of a federal witness, and conspiracy to conceal criminal proceeds. Tyler thrashed. You don't know who you're messing with. You just added witness intimidation, she replied. Keep talking. I watched it happen like a ghost watching the scene of her own death. My daughter crying. My son-in-law snarling. The FBI combing through my house for evidence they had planted and I had uprooted. When it was over, the door shut quietly behind them. The silence was absolute. I sat on the couch. Picked up the folder Tyler left behind. Opened it. Inside was a pre-signed transfer of the Oak Lane property deed. Blank lines for my signature. A note in Tyler's handwriting, just initial here. This is best for all of us. I laughed. A full-bodied, bitter sound that scraped up from somewhere I hadn't known was still alive. I set it in the fireplace and lit the match myself. The next morning, Agent Martinez returned. This time alone. No jacket. No badge visible. She placed a file on my table. What's this? I asked. Closure, she said. I opened it. Inside were internal memos, sealed testimony, tax documentation. At the top was a letter with a Department of Justice seal. Your husband, Harry W. Green, was not a criminal. He was a federal asset. I stared. I don't understand. Sarah, Saturday, 12 years ago, Harry began working with us. He'd witnessed some serious criminal operations and approached an agent. With our help, he created front companies to launder money back into legitimate systems. His shell companies were covers, used to expose dirty actors. I was stunned. So all this. All of it was authorized, monitored, cleaned through federal programs. What you inherited, Mrs. Green, is not criminal money. It's legal, compensated, documented. She handed me a separate envelope. Those are your reinstated account details. Unfrozen. Cleared. Secure. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Harry had lived a double life. Not as a criminal. As a cleaner. As a man who spent 12 years helping the government dismantle criminal enterprises from the inside. I looked at the photograph on the wall, the one from our 25th anniversary in Vermont. Harry had always been quiet. Private. Now I understood why. He didn't tell me because he wasn't allowed to. He'd been protecting us the entire time. Lauren and Tyler had tried to weaponize his legacy to cover their own fraud. And all they had done was point the FBI right to their doorstep. I whispered, they used his secrets to try and erase me. Sarah nodded. And his secrets saved you. I stared at the bank documents. The numbers weren't small. My accounts were back. My home, legally locked in. And the charges against Lauren and Tyler? Federal. With prison time. I felt it in my chest like a new kind of breath. What happens now? I asked. Sarah rose. Now you choose. She left. I stood in the middle of my living room, watching the early light stream through the window panes. And for the first time since Harry's funeral, the air felt still. Not dead. Not haunted. Just still. The woman who had once been seated in the corner of a room she paid for now owned the room. And every table in it. It started with a knock just after sunrise, not loud, not urgent. The kind of knock that asks for mercy before it even opens the door. I didn't bother dressing for it. I stood in my robe, hair still pinned, coffee in hand, and opened the door to find Lauren on the porch. No guards this time. No Tyler. No lawyers. Just her. Her mascara was smeared. Her lips were chapped. She wore an oversized sweatshirt and sweatpants that swallowed her whole. She looked less like my daughter and more like a girl who had wandered too far from home and forgotten how to get back. "Mom," she said. I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. Didn't even blink. She folded. Just like that. Shoulders sagging, face cracking. Tears welled, and I didn't feel anything. No maternal tug. No pain. Just a clean, cold clarity. "I messed up," she said, voice hoarse. I know what I did. But I'm still your daughter. That doesn't just go away." I let the words settle. Then I spoke. "Daughters don't forge wills." Her lips trembled. I stepped aside, not to let her in, but to step out onto the porch. The morning air was sharp. October in Clearwater always surprised people like her, who thought Florida meant endless warmth. I pulled my phone from my robe pocket and opened Harry's final voice message, the one I'd only listened to twice, because once was enough to slice the heart, and twice was to remind myself I wasn't crazy. His voice came through, firm, deliberate. "If you're hearing this, Lauren, it means you chose the shortcut. It means the clause was tested. And you failed. I loved you. But I loved your mother more. And I needed to know you wouldn't destroy her to build yourself." Lauren dropped to her knees. Not dramatically. Not for show. She sank like her bones couldn't carry the weight anymore. "I thought, Tyler said it was harmless. He said you'd be fine. That it would simplify things. That—" She choked on the words. "He told me you were fragile. That you wouldn't want the responsibility. That you were too tired to fight." I looked down at her, this woman I raised, this stranger who'd drawn up contracts behind my back, and I asked the only question that still mattered. "Did you believe him?" She hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. I turned to go back inside. She reached out, gripping my ankle like a drowning swimmer. "I'm sorry, Mom." "No," I said, stepping free. "You're scared." I closed the door on her, sobbing. I didn't slam it. Just turned the lock with the same quiet resolve she'd once used to change the house's Wi-Fi password and never share it with me. She stayed on the porch for another hour. Then I heard the engine of an old sedan pull away. The last tie fraying at the edge. 2 days later, someone rang my doorbell at noon. Not Lauren. Evelyn Miller again. This time, she didn't wear linen. She wore armor, metaphorical, but unmistakable. A structured blazer. Pearls. Lipstick drawn like a blade. She didn't smile. She stepped into the foyer like she owned air itself and sat down without invitation. "I assume you've heard," she said. "The plea deal's been rejected. Tyler's going to trial. So is Lauren." I sat across from her. "Good." She didn't blink. "I came to make another offer." "You're not listening." "I'm not offering money this time." She pulled out a file and slid it across the coffee table. Inside, photos. Documents. A spreadsheet. A surveillance image of Harry in an airport. Receipts from wire transfers. Old phone records. Names I didn't recognize. "Harry wasn't always working for the government," she said. "Not in the beginning. The line between asset and actor is thinner than you think." I stared at the file. I didn't touch it. "I can make this public," she continued. "Blogs. Podcasts. Anonymous leaks to the right journalists. You think a podcast producer wouldn't jump at the widow of Clearwater's secret empire? You think that scares me?" "I think," she said coolly, "you care about legacy." I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. Legacy? I buried legacy the moment Lauren said I was baggage. The moment your son handed me $300 and a fake will. Evelyn shifted. Just slightly. "Look, Martha. You're a smart woman. A tough woman. I respect that. But right now, you're pushing for blood. What I'm offering is quiet. Control. You're offering blackmail. I'm offering peace. I stood. I think it's time you left. She didn't move. This could get ugly. It's already ugly, I said, voice tightening. And you should pray it doesn't get worse. Because if I dig into Harry's secrets and find anything that traces back to you or your husband's firm, you won't. I will bury you in the same court where your son is going to rot. She stood then. Finally. But she didn't retreat. Not fully. Be careful, Martha, she said. Rage is a blunt weapon. It swings wide and hits things you didn't mean to break. I stepped closer. Everything you see here, I said, motioning to the house around us I built. With silence. With loyalty. With compromises. But I've learned something. What's that? That forgiveness is a privilege. Not an inheritance. She left. And this time, I locked the door behind her with a click that echoed like thunder. That night, I walked into Harry's study and stared at the boxes Carolchen hadn't finished cataloging. A sea of files. A history of half-truths. I didn't flinch. I opened the nearest one and began to read. Property deeds. Holdings. Deposits. A name circled in red. Connor Blaze. The name tugged at something old. I called Carol. Run this name. Connor Blaze. See what he's tied to. She called back an hour later. He's not a criminal, she said. He's DEA. Retired. He worked with Harry. There's overlap. Quiet meetings. Same travel routes. Martha. I think Harry flipped him. My breath caught. My husband hadn't just worked with the government. He'd recruited for them. I closed the file slowly. Pressed my fingers to my lips. Sat in the chair Harry used for 20 years. And wept. Not from pain. From recognition. The man I loved had been many things. But he never betrayed me. Lauren had tried to poison that truth. Evelyn had tried to auction it off. But here it stood. In file boxes and federal memos and security clearances I couldn't pronounce. Harry hadn't saved secrets from me. He'd saved me from them. And now it was my turn to do the same. 3 days later, I received a letter. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside, a handwritten apology from Tyler. Not to me. To the judge. He was requesting leniency on the grounds of emotional distress and familial confusion. He cited toxic family dynamics and manipulated documents. Not once did he name me. Not once did he acknowledge the forged will. The $300. The forced eviction. He'd turned himself into a victim. A masterclass in deflection. I sent a copy of the letter to Agent Martinez. She called me 20 minutes later. Want to respond? She asked. I smiled. I already did. How? I sent it to the prosecutor with a full record of Tyler's email to the notary. The one where he asked how to backdate a revision to an estate will without flagging it. Martinez laughed. Nicely done. I'm not done. That night, I stood in the mirror and saw myself differently. Not older. Not smaller. Sharper. Defined. Hardened. The mother who raised Lauren. The wife who protected Harry. The woman who outlasted them both. And tomorrow, I would walk into court. Not as a grieving widow. As a witness. As a weapon. And this time, I would not be sitting in the corner. I opened Harry's safe at 3:12 a.m. Not because I couldn't sleep. I had finally slept for solid hours, the most I'd gotten since the reading of the fake will. But when I woke, I knew. The quiet that sat in my bones wasn't peace. It was warning. Something was still wrong. I could feel it humming through the house like electricity. The safe was in the wall behind his bookshelves, hidden, but not cleverly. He always assumed no one in the family would go snooping through tax ledgers and war memoirs. And he was right. Until now. The combination still worked. My birthday. He never changed it. Inside were 2 black binders, a flash drive, and a single note in Harry's handwriting. Martha, if you're here, I either told you to look, or you had to. I sat cross-legged on the floor and opened the binders. The first one was clean. Organized. Quarterly reports, retirement accounts, letters of agreement with the DOJ. Everything Sarah had already told me. But the second binder was messier. Photocopies of checks. Cash withdrawals that didn't match any documented operation. Receipts from Switzerland. Transfers to names I didn't recognize. A shell company in Belize. An art gallery in Miami I'd never heard of. And one name repeated on multiple deposit memos, Blaze Holdings. Carol had said it. Harry had recruited a DEA asset named Connor Blaze. But this looked personal. The flash drive was labeled simply MG. My initials. I plugged it into the old laptop I kept upstairs for budgeting. It clicked once. Word. Then a video loaded. Grainy footage. No date. It was Harry, sitting at his desk, wearing the blue flannel he only wore when he was nervous. He stared into the camera for a full 5 seconds before speaking. If you're seeing this, Martha, it means I never got the chance to explain. Or maybe I did and didn't know how. His voice was tired. His hands kept fidgeting off screen. I started working with the feds because I thought it would clean things. Give me a way to get out. But there were compromises. Deals I made to keep things moving. I let dirty money pass through because they told me it was part of the trap. I rationalized it for years. A pause. He rubbed his face. And then I stopped knowing if I was doing good work or just laundering guilt. He looked up. His eyes met mine through the screen, through time. I kept it from you because you would have made me stop. You would have made me see myself. And I couldn't risk that. You always saw too clearly. He smiled. A soft, broken thing. I left you the majority because I owed it. Not just financially. You were my compass. Even when I was off course. The screen went black. I closed the laptop. And sat in the dark. The next morning, I called Carol and told her to meet me at 9 a.m. sharp. She arrived with her usual bag, no makeup, hair tied in a braid that made her look more like a schoolteacher than a forensic accountant. I handed her the binders. The flash drive. I need you to tell me exactly what's real, what's illegal, and what's recoverable. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded. It'll take time. I have it. For 3 days, I barely left the house. I lived in Harry's study, surrounded by files. I made coffee I didn't drink. I stared at balance sheets like they could speak. But nothing in those pages could tell me what I needed to know. Was Harry a hero, or a liar who got too good at justifying it? On the 4th day, Carol returned with her summary. I've split it into 3 categories, she said, laying down folders. Confirmed legal. Legally gray. Legally damned. The 3rd folder was thinner than I feared. But it still existed. Some of the shell company money came from criminal actors, she said. You weren't tied to it. Not directly. But the money is contaminated. She paused. There's a chance the feds haven't seen this part yet. It was buried. Quiet. But if they do find it, they'll freeze it. Again. I closed my eyes. How much? About $1, 2 million of your current liquid assets. A quarter of your inherited total. I breathed through my nose. And if I turn it over first? She nodded slowly. That changes everything. I walked to the window. The neighborhood was quiet. Lawn sprinklers ticked in perfect suburban rhythm. Children rode bikes. A woman walked her dog past my hedges. They didn't know. No one did. That I might be living in a house paid for with good intentions and dirty money. I want to turn it over, I said. All of it. I don't care what happens to the money. I care what happens to the truth. Carol looked at me, eyes narrowed. You know that's rare, right? I laughed. Do you know how many casseroles I baked while being lied to? She smiled. More than most. Agent Martinez arrived within the hour. This time, her face was unreadable. She scanned the documents. The transfers. The flash drive. Harry's confession. This complicates things, she said. I imagine it does. You're not under investigation, she clarified. But this changes your public narrative. You were the widow of a secret federal asset. Now you're also the beneficiary of a partially tainted estate. I nodded. I want it all on record. I want it in the file. I want it true. She studied me. There'll be fallout. I know. She placed the files in her bag. We'll start the forfeiture process immediately. The DOJ will reclaim the $1, 2 million. The rest remains yours. Cleared. Documented. I nodded again. And the press? I asked. She sighed. That's up to them. It didn't take long. The first article came 3 days later. Hero or hustler? The widow of Clearwater breaks her silence. Then a second. Exclusive. Inside the double life of Harry Green and the wife who exposed it. I didn't do interviews. I didn't need to. The documents spoke for themselves. But that didn't stop the speculation. Some called me brave. Some called me complicit. One podcast said I was the Lady Macbeth of estate fraud. I sat on the porch and listened to it. Just once. Then deleted it and returned to my coffee. Lauren wrote me a letter from Holding. Not an email. Not a message. A real letter. The handwriting was mine, sloppy, hurried, but mine. She had my loops. My slants. She wrote that Tyler had blamed her for everything. That she'd signed things she didn't read. That she had tried to fix it. That she never stopped loving me. She wrote that she still remembered the night I held her after her first panic attack, age 17, on the bathroom floor. She wrote that she hated herself for how it ended. And she asked quietly, without demand, if I would ever write her back. I didn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I didn't throw it away either. I placed it in Harry's old lockbox, right next to the flash drive and the note with my initials. The forfeiture process took 3 months. They cleared the dirty funds, left the rest intact. My name was removed from every possible implication. The federal summary document stated, in bold, no criminal involvement determined. Edward brought it over in a manila envelope and laid it on my kitchen table. You're free, he said. I nodded. No debts. No charges. And after all that, he smiled faintly. You're still wealthy. I'm not, I said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. I'm something better, I said. I'm clean. He left. I sat in the silence. And for the first time since the first toast, since the seat by the catering boxes, since the moment Lauren said I was an obligation, I believed it. The day they asked me to wear a wire, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask if it was dangerous. I didn't blink. Agent Martinez sat across from me at Edward's office, the same one where I once sat stunned, holding Harry's real will like a life raft. Now I sat with my hands flat on the table, back straight, ready. We need more, she said. Your testimony, the forged documents, Harry's confession, they're strong. But we want intent. Direct admission. We want them on record knowing what they did and why. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the brooch she slid across the table, silver, round, with a pearl center. Elegant. Understated. Inside, it held a microphone smaller than the nail on my pinky finger. I'll do it, I said. Martinez didn't smile. She just nodded. You'll be monitored the entire time. If anything feels wrong, touch the brooch twice. That's our signal to pull you out. I won't need to. They might try to manipulate you again. Gaslight you. They'll try. You'll have to let them talk. Let them think they're winning. I met her eyes. That won't be hard. The meeting was set for Thursday evening. Tyler called me from a restricted number at exactly 6:03 p.m. His voice was smooth again, soothing, like a man negotiating the price of a meal he couldn't afford. Martha, I think it's time we talked. He didn't say about what. He didn't need to. Lauren wants to apologize, he added. We both do. It's time we put this behind us. The phrasing was careful, this, not what we did. They were still rewriting history with every breath. We'll come by at 7, he said. Fine, I replied. I hung up. Edward insisted I have someone nearby. Martinez arranged a surveillance van 1 block east. A team of agents would listen in, record everything, wait for the signal. But inside the house, it would be just me, Tyler, and Lauren. Like it had always been. I wore navy again, Harry's favorite color on me. The brooch sat high on my collar, angled toward my face. It looked ordinary, maybe a little dated. That was the point. I lit candles. Put out glasses of water. No wine. No pretense. They arrived at 6:59. Of course. Lauren wore beige. Her version of humility. Minimal makeup. Tyler, crisp as ever, in a suit that looked one rental away from repossession. Thank you for seeing us, he said as I opened the door. I wanted to hear the truth, I said, stepping aside. And you wanted to spin it. He laughed lightly, as if I were being charming. We sat in the living room, me in Harry's chair, them on the couch. The same spots they once claimed during movie nights. Back when I believed in us. Tyler leaned forward, hands clasped. Let's not waste time, Martha. We both know mistakes were made. But they weren't malicious. We were scared. Grieving. Overwhelmed. The estate was complicated. We wanted to simplify the process. You forged my husband's will. He sighed. We thought it was a previous version. We didn't know which one was valid. Lies, I said quietly. You knew about the clause. You tried to erase it. Lauren reached for my hand. I let her fingers touch mine just long enough to make the betrayal feel fresh again. Mom, I was angry. I thought Dad had changed everything last minute. I didn't know. You knew, I said. You just didn't care. Tyler cleared his throat. Look, we're not here to argue. We're here with a proposal. Clean documents. Legal transfers. You keep the house, a share of the assets. We move forward. You tried to steal my life. He smiled. Soft. Almost pitying. We tried to protect what was ours. Your grief blinded you. We thought it would be easier if we made the transition quietly. The transition? I repeated. To retirement, he said. To rest. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. You mean exile? He spread his hands. If you want to call it that. I leaned forward. When did you find out Harry was working with the government? His eyes flickered. Just for a second. Excuse me. You knew. Maybe before the wedding. Maybe after. But you found out. And you used it. You thought you could bury your fraud under his crimes. Lauren flinched. You want a deal? I said. Tell me the timeline. Tyler straightened. Fine, he said. We knew 6 months before Harry died. We found a file. I took it to someone. They confirmed he was either laundering money or pretending to. We didn't know which. And you thought that justified cutting me out? He shrugged. We thought it made your claim complicated. I smiled, just a little. Outside, I imagined the agents in the van listening, transcribing, sharpening their pens. Lauren started to cry. I didn't want to hurt you, Mom. I just wanted a future. I've lived under his shadow my whole life. I thought maybe this was finally mine. And stealing it made it yours? I was scared, she whispered. You were greedy. She broke then. Sobbed hard, loud. Tyler reached for her hand. She slapped his away. I did it, she choked. Not him. The will. I forged it. I sat still. Let the weight of it settle in the room like smoke. Why? I asked. I thought if I didn't, you'd leave everything to some charity. Or worse, to the government, once they found out about Dad. I was protecting what was left of us. There is no us, I said. You killed that. Outside, the van doors swung open. A second later, the front door burst in. FBI. Martinez's voice rang clear. Agents poured in. Again. This time faster. Cleaner. Like a performance they'd perfected. Lauren screamed. Tyler jumped to his feet. Not again, he shouted. You can't do this. You're under arrest, Martinez said. Wire fraud. Elder abuse. Extortion. Tampering with federal documents. Perjury. He looked at me wild-eyed. You set us up? I met his stare. No, I said. You set yourselves up. I just pressed play. They cuffed Lauren. She sobbed harder. Martinez read her rights. Tyler tried to run. Didn't get far. They brought him down hard against the floor. I watched it all. Not triumphant. Not satisfied. Just finished. They were taken out in separate cars. Neighbors watched. Again. Some peeked through curtains. One filmed. I didn't flinch. Back inside, Martinez unpinned the brooch. You got everything, she said. That was textbook. I know, I replied. She looked at me. This will bury them. They'll do time. They earned it. She paused. You okay? No, I said. But I will be. The news broke that night. Daughter and son-in-law of Clearwater widow arrested for multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. I didn't read the full article. I didn't need to. The only headline that mattered had been written the moment Lauren confessed. I did it. I printed that page and tucked it into Harry's old ledger. Legacy has many definitions. Mine was no longer a secret. The day the government confirmed the money was clean, I was standing in Harry's closet, holding one of his sweaters I hadn't washed since the funeral. It still smelled like him. After the arrests, after the wire, after the court hearings, there had been weeks of silence. Not peace, just the absence of movement. A waiting room of a life. I'd wake up, make coffee, water the plants, and feel time pass without meaning. But on that morning, the phone rang. Agent Martinez didn't introduce herself. She didn't need to. She just said, "It's done." I didn't answer. She continued. "The DOJ finished the investigation. We've confirmed that your husband was working as a federal asset for 12 years. The questionable transactions were part of monitored operations. The shell companies were sanctioned. Everything he earned was paid through government compensation channels." I held the sweater tighter. "Your money, Mrs. Green, is clean. Legally. Ethically. Officially." I sank onto the edge of the bed. The line of sunlight across the hardwood made the dust sparkle. I remembered vacuuming that spot every Thursday. Harry always called it my holy streak. And now, this house, the life we built, was no longer an echo of betrayal. It was proof. Proof that he hadn't lied. Not about the things that mattered. That the man who kept secrets had done it to keep us safe, not to keep me small. That he had spent his final years building shields, not walls. I whispered, "Thank you." Martinez hesitated. "You're free now. All of it. No audits. No risk of seizure. The accounts are yours. The assets are yours. And the department has issued an apology for the delay in confirmation." An apology. The government rarely said those words. But they gave them to me. I hung up. Then I sat in that strip of light and cried, not from rage, not from grief, not from guilt. From clarity. Because for the first time since Harry's heart stopped, I knew who I was grieving. And it wasn't a liar. It was a protector who'd gambled everything to make sure his daughter and wife could live past him. He just didn't know the daughter he was protecting me from. Edward came over that afternoon. No appointment. Just knocked and held out a file folder like it was a peace offering. "What now?" I asked as I opened the door. "Restitution," he said. "The court approved it." I let him in. The kitchen still smelled faintly of lemon polish. He sat down, loosened his tie, and poured himself a glass of water without asking. I didn't mind. He was the only man left in my life who didn't need a reason to be honest. "You're entitled to pursue civil damages," he said. "What they did to you, fraud, eviction, emotional manipulation, it has financial teeth." I nodded. "And?" The judge agreed. "You're entitled to sue for the total value of what they tried to steal. The house, the primary account, the trust fund they transferred illegally, the cash payments they forced you to accept." He slid the folder toward me. Inside, numbers. Big ones. Bold ones. Damages that came with commas. And beneath that, a simple checkbox. Proceed with lawsuit. Decline further action. I stared at it. "Do I get to add interest?" I asked. Edward smiled. "Legally, yes. Emotionally? You already have." I didn't check the box. Not yet. That evening, I walked through the house room by room. No Lauren. No Tyler. No secret conversations or silent accusations. Just air. Clean air. And floors that creaked for no one but me. In the kitchen, I found the photo album Lauren had made for me one Christmas years ago, back when we still pretended to be close. The cover was leather-bound, embossed with "To Mom, Our Story." I flipped through it. Baby Lauren in a high chair, smearing peas across her face. Me in the background, smiling, younger than I felt I ever was. Lauren in graduation robes. Harry standing next to her, hand on her shoulder. Our trip to Maine. The cabin. The lake. The sunrise. And then, the wedding. Lauren in white. Tyler in navy. Me in silver. I stared at that photo for a long time. She looked happy. I looked hopeful. I closed the album. And I put it in a drawer. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I was done remembering on their behalf. The next day, I called the Silver Shield Foundation. They were a nonprofit I'd heard of during the process with the DOJ, a group that offered legal defense and advocacy for elderly victims of financial abuse. A volunteer named Kelsey answered. "This is Martha Green," I said. "I'd like to make a donation." "How much were you thinking?" $1, $5 million. Silence. Then, "I'm sorry, did you say?" "Yes," I said. "And I'd like to earmark it for legal defense, especially for women who've been displaced or manipulated by their own children." More silence. "Mrs. Green, are you sure?" "Absolutely," I said. "I want my pain to buy someone else freedom." She choked up. I could hear it. That's going to save lives." I nodded. "That's the idea." Later that week, the podcast offer came in. True crime. Big name. A 6-part investigative series on family betrayal and estate fraud. They wanted my voice. Not a narrator. Not an actress. Me. I said yes. Not for the publicity. For the control. For the first time in months, the narrative was mine. We recorded the first episode in my living room. I told them everything, how it started, what Lauren said at the dinner, the $300 in cash, the forged will, the motel, the wire. The moment I looked my daughter in the eye and realized she had mistaken my silence for surrender. When we wrapped, the producer, 20-something, bright-eyed, asked me a question off mic. "Do you regret not pressing charges earlier?" I sipped my coffee. "No," I said. "Because when you fight a war, you need to know your enemy's full arsenal." I waited until they showed me everything. He stared at me. "That's cold," he said, almost admiring. "No," I replied. "That's clean." Lauren and Tyler were sentenced to 14 months each, reduced from 3 years due to plea bargains and cooperation. The courtroom was silent when the judge read the decision. I sat in the back. No press. No statement. Just presence. Lauren didn't look at me. Not once. Tyler turned once. Tried to smile. I didn't return it. They were escorted out in cuffs. The silence that followed was not joyful. It was surgical. Necessary. Final. 6 months later, the house was mine again. Fully. Legally. Emotionally. I repainted the study, Harry's dark wood replaced with warm cream. I converted it into a studio. Art, mostly. I painted old memories. Landscapes. Rooms I remembered from better years. Nothing special. But every brushstroke felt like reclamation. I joined a local women's group for those navigating late-life transitions. Divorces. Deaths. Discoveries of long-held secrets. We called it the Second Circle. My story spread quietly. Not tabloids. Not drama. Just testimony. My name, Martha Green, became a kind of whispered warning. Don't seat the mother in the corner. Don't underestimate the quiet woman at the end of the table. She remembers everything. And she writes the final draft. 6 months after the trial, my kitchen smells like coffee and paint. The old pine cabinets Harry once refused to replace are now soft gray. I painted them myself. The brush strokes are uneven in places, but they belong to me. The countertops are cluttered with palettes, brushes, notes for podcast interviews, and flyers from the Silver Shield Foundation. I still forget to throw out the newspaper some days, but it doesn't bother me anymore. It's not chaos. It's proof I exist here. The house has grown into its silence. It no longer feels like a tomb or a battlefield. It breathes with me now. I leave the windows open. I let the morning come in unfiltered. The studio is my sanctuary. The room where Harry once balanced ledgers and secrets now smells like oil paints and turpentine. There's a half-finished canvas by the window, an abstract rendering of the banquet table from that night, twisted and angular, a chair tipped just slightly toward the corner. A reminder. Not of pain. Of clarity. I don't touch it anymore. It's finished in all the ways that matter. Lauren has written me 17 letters from prison. I haven't read them all. I stopped after the 5th. They started with apologies. Carefully worded, scrubbed of detail. Then they shifted into explanations, then justifications, and finally, into attempts at nostalgia. Remember the beach trip when I was 9? Remember the cinnamon rolls you used to make when I was sick? You were always the strong one, Mom. You can forgive me. I never responded. Because what they don't understand is this: forgiveness is not owed. It's earned. And it cannot live where trust has died. I didn't stop loving Lauren. That's not how maternal love works. It doesn't have an off switch. But love without respect is just dead. A weight you carry long after your spine begins to crack. I've stopped carrying. Tyler, unsurprisingly, didn't write. But I saw his name in the news again last month, buried in the back pages. Disbarred permanently. His financial licenses revoked. The headline was dry. Former advisor sentenced for role in elder fraud scheme. No mention of me. That was intentional. I asked the court to redact my name from all press documents. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was done letting other people narrate my story. If they wanted it, they'd have to come listen to it from my mouth. Which, as it turns out, more and more people have. The podcast is a success. Not viral. Not flashy. But it cuts deep. We titled it The Corner Chair. A reference most people don't understand until the last episode. People write in, women mostly. Older. Wounded. Some have similar stories. Others just feel seen for the first time. My son said I was overreacting when I asked for rent, one woman wrote. Now I know I'm not alone. I gave my daughter power of attorney. She moved me into a guest house and took my car. I thought I was going crazy. I'm not. And this one, from a 76-year-old woman in Vermont. Thank you for reminding me I still own the room. Every time I read a message like that, I whisper a thank you to the part of me that refused to vanish quietly. Daniel came to visit last week. He brought his son, my grandson Eli. 6 years old. Curious. Honest in the way only children can be. Grandma, he asked, as we watered the succulents on the windowsill, why don't you talk to Aunt Lauren? I paused. Daniel looked up from the couch, tense. I knelt beside Eli and said, because sometimes, when people hurt you too much, you have to let them go so you don't hurt yourself trying to hold on. He nodded slowly. Like when my balloon flew away and I didn't chase it because it was going toward the highway? I smiled. Exactly like that. Later that night, Daniel stood by the door with guilt in his shoulders. You know I still talk to her, he said. I know. She asks about you. I bet she does. I don't know how to forgive her. But she's my sister. I touched his hand. That's your choice. And your burden. I won't carry it for you. He nodded. I hope one day you too. Don't, I said softly. Don't hope for what you don't understand yet. He looked at me. Not angry. Just aware. It was the first time he saw me not as mom, but as Martha. The woman behind the mother. On my birthday, I did something I never thought I'd do. I booked a flight. Rome. First class. A boutique hotel with a view of the Spanish Steps. Harry always said we'd go when we retired. We never did. He was always too busy. Always next year. Then it was too late. I don't believe in next years anymore. So I went. I wandered cobblestone alleys. I ate tiramisu alone and didn't feel lonely. I walked through the Vatican and whispered a prayer, not for peace, but for proof that I still had a life inside me. And I did. On my last day, I sat in a plaza sketching strangers. An old couple. A child feeding pigeons. A man in a suit crying on the phone. Life, in all its mess, unfiltered. A woman passed by and paused. Beautiful, she said, looking at my sketchpad. I smiled. Thank you. She pointed at the corner of the drawing. You left that chair empty. I looked down. A small wrought iron chair, empty and angled slightly out of frame. I hadn't even realized I'd drawn it. It's waiting, I said. For what? For whoever deserves it. I came home to a clean house and 2 voicemails. One was from the podcast producer, offering a book deal. The other was from my attorney, asking if I'd finally decided whether to check the box and sue Lauren and Tyler for civil damages. I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and stared at the envelope still on the counter. The box remained unchecked. Not because I forgave them, but because I didn't need more victory. I had already won. Not in court. In silence. In agency. In the decision to not strike again just because I could. I go to bed early these days. Not from exhaustion, but because rest is no longer punishment. I no longer lie awake wondering if I've been loved correctly. I light a candle. I read one chapter. I turn out the lights. And in the dark, I listen to the house breathe with me. Steady. Still. Mine. If you ever find yourself seated in the corner, don't leave. Wait. Let them toast. Let them call you baggage. Let them forget what you've paid for. Let them think the story is theirs. Then, when the silence comes, when the music fades and the speeches end, stand and rewrite the room. Because sometimes, the most dangerous woman in the story is the one they tried to make invisible. And she never forgets a single word they said.